everyone. We are here with Frank, and today we're going to learn a little bit about his investing journey with rental properties. I'm going to hopefully inspire some of you guys who live in really high cost areas like California and you're needing to invest out of state. And perhaps rather you'd maybe like to find a turnkey property like Frank is doing, so you're earning cash flow from day one and not having to worry about rehab, doing that out of state all by yourself, or even placing tenants yourself. So Frank, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what made you want to become a real estate investor?
Yeah, my name is Frank. I live in California, Central Coast, California, and I'm a general contractor, residential remodeling, mostly lots of kitchens and bathrooms. And I've been wanting to get into real estate investing for quite some time. And I actually did back in 2007 and 8, and was obviously the wrong time. So I, in fact, ended up losing those properties because of the loans that we got, and just diving in head first with no knowledge or anything like that. So it was a bad experience at the time, but I never lost the interest in doing it. Being self-employed, I'm looking forward to using that as a retirement for myself, and and future wealth for my family, my son, and so forth. So, like Casey said, I'm out of investing out of state because our area is so expensive. We've looked at a lot of different markets, and we ended up falling in Missouri for our first property. We're in contract on a turnkey, like you mentioned, and we're waiting for the rehab to be completed so that they can get a tenant in place for us. And that's where we're starting out.
Frank, with the experience that you've already had, you've had rental properties in the past, and I remember you saying you also kind of helped manage your mom's properties in Texas. With that prior experience, why did you feel like you still needed to have help, a coaching program and training program? Why did you still feel you needed that, even though you've already had experience in the past with rental properties?
Well, back then, when I convinced my mom to purchase it was a new construction in Texas at the time. And there was another program going around back then that the companies were building homes in areas that maybe were near military bases. This one happens to be in San Antonio. And that property, after it was built, came with property management in place. And that one actually has been performing really well. So I really haven't had to do anything with it. So except for, maybe repair AC once in a while or new linoleum here or there. It's turned over the years, maybe 3 times since 2007, which is pretty good, I think. So I think I needed help, and decided to seek help because of that fact. I haven't had to do anything with that one. So now that kind of program isn't around so much anymore. So having to research markets and trying to build a team out of state, those kinds of things. And it's kind of like anything else that you want to learn. If you want to learn something, nowadays you either go on YouTube or you go take a class. So, you can't really learn everything on YouTube. So we decided that it would be a good thing for us to find someone who has already done it, like yourself, for example, who has gone through the experience from beginning to end and has a history of success with it, and that's what I was hoping to get out of a mentorship program.
What were some of the things you were struggling with? I mean, you're already a contractor. You are well-versed already in rehab, and you could flip a property, and I am so confident you could do it out of state. What were some of the other aspects of the program that maybe you were hoping to really hone in on? We learned a lot in the 6-week intensive. We went through mindset, finding a location. We did go through rehab. We went through, oh gosh, what else? Landlording, finding property management companies, and so many things. What was your experience with the 6-week course intensive, and what did you feel like you maybe benefited the most from, or were really hoping you could learn from the course aspect?
Well, I think a big part of it was all of those things that you mentioned were kind of in our mind. You know, we've been really studying since the beginning of 2020, when I guess I kind of got re-energized and focused on this goal. And so like I was saying, you have all these thoughts in your head, but you don't really know where to begin to get the information. Things like, you know, you mentioned property managers. So the one thought is, okay, well, I'll get a property manager, but you bring up all these questions, like things that we need to ask to find a good property manager, or things to research in how to find a good neighborhood, how to find a good city, research the city, if there are any upcoming, you know, new companies coming in or different trends for the areas that would help with keeping the people there employed. And things are a little sketchy these days, but just all of the going through all the processes with you and all of the questions that came up that I would have never thought to ask. That part of it was invaluable. And going back, I think that, you know, that's what we needed. We needed a little bit of guidance from that point on. So that was super helpful.
Now, your family also went through the training, your wife and your son, who's a college student, or did he graduate already?
He graduated.
Graduated.
Yeah, about a year ago. So he's, you know, trying to find his way, and I'm hoping through this process, like you mentioned, they've been following me through the program, and I shouldn't say surprisingly, but I am a little bit surprised at the fact that he really goes away and he thinks about these things that, you know, we find going through the program, and he'll come back the next day or a couple of days later asking questions, you know, about financing, or, you know, why can't we do this? And so that's been really nice to see. And that's one of my goals, is that, you know, my end goal is kind of two parts. One would be to hopefully have a little retirement so we don't need to work as much later on. And the other is, if anything did happen to me, that they could carry on, because they're going to know everything that I know. And, you know, hopefully by then we'll have a few properties under our belt, and they'll be able just to keep that going, and be a little bit more secure in that way.
How was your wife when you said, "All right, Cynthia, I want to buy another rental property again"? What was what did she have to say about that?
She's always willing to try things like this with me. She was a little bit nervous because, like I said, the first time I did it, I was doing it for all of us, but like I said, I just dove in. At the time, they were just handing out loans right and left. It didn't matter how much you made. And so, like I mentioned, we lost those properties. We ended up having to go through bankruptcy, and that was pretty traumatic for her, especially. You know, I've never had sleepless nights like I had back then. And so she was a little bit nervous, but now that I can show her all these examples of what we're learning and how it really is supposed to work, and if you do your research, and you know, back then, positive cash flow didn't even come into my mind. I don't know what I was thinking back then, but you know, now knowing that that's kind of something you need to make the deals work. And like you said, with her following through, she's understanding things more too. So she's a lot more comfortable this time around. And, you know, honestly, it has not taken that much money, not as much money as I thought, to get into a deal. So, and like you and I have talked about, you know, you can have 30 or 40,000 sitting in a savings account earning $20 a month, or you can invest it and earn, you know, 2, 3, maybe a little bit more sometimes, 100 a month. So that's helped convince her a little bit too.
That's good. I'm glad that they've both gotten to go through the program too. I think that that's really awesome that they wanted to go through the training, that they followed along with you and watched the modules. And it's become kind of a family thing to go through the training program.
Yeah, I think it's kind of for them, I think their goal going through the program is, like I mentioned before, so that I won't have to work as much or as hard as I do now. And for me, it's so they're taken care of. So we're, you know, we're hoping for the best for each other. And that's, I think it's a pretty big motivator. You know, people talk about finding your why, and we have our whys, and that really pushes you to, you know, get up every day and go do it, even if it's going to be a tough day or whatever.
Let's talk about your first rental property now. You're currently in contract. You've got a single family. It's under rehab. It's in Kansas City, or Independence, I think, actually, which is right outside of Kansas City. So tell me about how you found it, why you decided on turnkey, what, you know, your market decisions on, you know, going back and forth between maybe a different market to landing in Kansas City. Tell me all about your experience with your first property that you're in contract with.
Yeah, we fell into well, we learned about this turnkey provider through another Facebook group, and the person that runs that Facebook group has had good experience over the years, and she's basically become a turnkey marketer. So she, if you're interested in any of the markets that they have turnkeys in, then she will introduce you to the turnkey provider. And then from there, they have a team that guides you through the process. And they list their properties on their website that are for sale. Typically, the properties are renovated. And that was kind of what made me go in that direction. After we started with you in the mentorship program, we went back and forth with maybe purchasing a home that was close to being rent ready, that might need just a little cosmetic work. And in doing that, it's taking a little bit longer to find a team, you know, find whether it might be a handyman or a contractor in that area, a real estate agent. Luckily, through our group, we met an agent in Atlanta that I was researching in the first place, and, you know, got on his MLS mailing list. So we're still actively looking in that area, but you hear a lot that you just need to start and do something. And I was to the point where I was learning so much that I was kind of stalled at, you know, before we started with you. And so I thought, if we start with a turnkey where the properties are mostly renovated from the roof down, that that would be a good place to start while we continue to look for a team in whatever other cities we land in. And so the turnkey providers don't have inventory in every state. They have a lot in the Midwest states. So we ended up choosing one in Missouri. And again, with your help after that, researching the neighborhoods and the schools and the area in general, those were positive things that helped me decide that it would be a good place to start.
So how much would you say you bought the property for, and you anticipate to make after, when you get a tenant in place? I think some of the benefits of using a turnkey property that we have discussed is that you can buy one that's already rent ready, it's already rehabbed, they put a tenant inside, and, you know, from day one, you're making positive cash flow. So you don't have to worry about a huge team and spending time validating people and finding property management companies. There's a lot of benefits to turnkey, but also, as we talked about, a lot of people have issues with turnkey providers. So we really talked a lot about, doing your own research and your own due diligence with every turnkey provider and every property. And so there are a lot of benefits, but as long as you do your research. So why don't you tell us, what do you anticipate making on the property? How much did you put into it? And how did you end up financing it?
Yeah, we ended up, the property that we selected was for sale for 154, and we're putting 20% down, and with closing costs, we'll be all in for 36,000. They're expecting to be able to get 1,200 a month rent, which I believe is a little below the 1% rule, but with everything calculated, principal and interest, the taxes and insurance, we should be positive cash flowing about 331, I believe. And we haven't taken out any of that for vacancy or repairs yet. I think mainly because everything should be new. We shouldn't really have any expenses for the first few years. We will definitely be setting something aside, but that's an honest, positive cash flow. And what you said about doing your due diligence, even with a turnkey company, especially because there are some out there who basically just do cosmetic fixes, and the numbers are very attractive, but some of the neighborhoods aren't that great. It seems like you could get a better cash flow in a not so good neighborhood, but then you're going to have higher turnovers and things like that. So we were kind of focused on getting something in what you would call a B-class neighborhood, or better. And this company that we're with has a few A and B class neighborhoods that they have properties in. So I think you probably are going to pay a little bit more for a neighborhood like that, but I think your property is going to be kept in better shape. You'll be able to get better tenants, or attract better tenants in those areas. And with the better schools and the low crime rate, that helps too.
That's awesome, Frank. I'm really proud of you. I'm really excited for your property you're going to be closing on in this coming month. So that is really cool. I can't wait to. I know we still have a little bit more time together. We're not quite done with all of our sessions. But everything we've gone through so far, the 6-week intensive course training and the continual coaching sessions, what is the thing that you feel like you benefited the most from in my program?
Well, I think all of the modules were very helpful. I was just looking over the list the other day, and actually the first few things on the list, the mindset and finding out honestly where you are on your financial scale, were helpful right away, and going through your examples of rehabbing and things like that, and your list that you make was pretty comprehensive and detailed. A lot of people don't think about a lot of those little things that were on your lists, and that can really affect your numbers in the end if you have unexpected little costs like that add up. Overall, the fact that you've already been through most of this yourself, and with your experience, and you share that with all of us, good and bad, thankfully, it's going to help save us some trouble down the road. And there are things that are going to come up. There are things that are unavoidable, obviously, but the better prepared you are beforehand, hopefully a lot of those things won't happen, because you can do your research and you can be ready for it, and get the answers beforehand for problems that might come up.
Frank, now that you have the knowledge and you're moving forward with your first rental property, what are your plans and goals for the future with real estate?
I think it's very exciting to think about what we're going to do next. You've given us suggestions about finding local Facebook groups in our area, and I was struggling with that a little bit. I mentioned I couldn't seem to find anybody close to where we are, But just yesterday, well, I should back up. A couple of weeks ago, I did find a couple of more local Facebook groups within a couple of hours of where we live, and ended up connecting with someone that's, up near San Francisco, and she was super excited to chat. We talked for an hour yesterday, and she just happens to be an out-of-state investor. She's got some stuff in Cleveland. It was just nice to talk to somebody who's as excited about this stuff as we are, and who has some experience. She's seems very honest, and she told us she had some issues and what they were and how things are going for her now. And she's put together a team in Cleveland, and just through talking to her, she's offered to connect us with them if we're interested. So I think she was in Columbus. I know some of our other students in our group are in that area too. So that might be another place to start researching along with Atlanta.
That's true. I love all the connections everyone's made. I couldn't believe what's the word? I couldn't believe all of the correlations and similarities that everybody has, and the markets that they're in and where they live. Like, we have multiple people who live in Indianapolis area. And then other people who want to invest there. So everyone's little network has been really helpful. Like how you found Alvin, and he is a realtor and investor in Atlanta, and you're considering investing there too. So it's nice to have these deep, I feel like relationships and friendships now with other students in the group, because it'll just, you feel comfortable with them, you feel confident, you trust them after knowing them for a few months. So I think it's been really cool. And I do love that aspect of our little group that we have.
Yeah, I was going to say that's been a really cool thing that's come up, is just, people in the group being okay with you. Just, I don't know, it's just seems like a friend you've had for a long time, and you can just call them or text them whenever, and you have a question, or just to check on them, see how they're doing, because we have this thing in common now with trying to get some investments, build a portfolio and things like that. And to be able to, it's really rewarding if you or I are able to help someone else in the group with a question. That's pretty rewarding and exciting in itself. And after a while, I think people will feel a little bit easier about reaching out. At first you're like, oh, I don't really want to bother this person or that person, but once you connect and you realize, okay, they're okay with me calling them with a question or whatever, and that's really fun.
I love it, Frank. I love it. So one of my last questions is, what would you say to the aspiring real estate investor who's looking to buy their first property? They're not sure if they're ready to take the plunge. They want to do it. Maybe they don't have a lot of experience. I mean, like, you're a contractor. Maybe they don't even have that. Maybe they don't even own their own property, but they're looking to maybe house hack or buy an investment out of state. But they're worried about the financial cost to get a coaching program and take the plunge. What would you say to that person?
Well, I think the cost of the coaching program shouldn't be I don't know what you'd call it, like a setback or something like that. I think if you are talking to me, I would say your program's a great place to start, because your investment in your education is going to save you a lot of headaches down the road, save you a lot of money, most likely too. And starting with you really care about the success of your students, for one. That's obvious to me now. And it was really, I don't know how it came across, but when I first saw you were on someone else's podcast, and your philosophy, the brick by brick philosophy, made a lot of sense. A lot of people are who are claiming to be coaches and things like that are just about buying as many doors as possible right off the bat. And that might work occasionally, but it seems like you're increasing your percentage to fail because you're getting all these properties without knowing, exactly what you're doing. And if you just start out slow, then and learn from the experience of each one, then your chances of making it are a lot better. I think, we were talking earlier about our plans. And so I think there's something to having a few properties. And I think our next goal will be to maybe look into a duplex. And my thinking for that is that if you have a couple more properties and you have an issue with one, then the others will help ease that. If it's a financial thing, you have to put a new roof on someplace or whatever it might be, you still have a couple other properties that can help pay that mortgage if you're using conventional financing and so forth. So for us, I think a few properties to begin with is a good place to start. And then once you watch those and see how they perform, then you'll know where you want to go from there.
Well said, Frank. I totally agree with you too. I'm all about learning each property at a time, brick by brick. You will gain wealth, and it's not a race to the top. It's not super slow, but it is a steady journey that will get you there, and it's safe. If you take the right steps, you make the right investments, you make the right decisions, it's safe. It's not risky. It's not scary, and it's not hard as some people make it out to be. So thank you so much for all of those things you said. Final thing, what would be the one recommendation you would make to other, what would be the main reason? What would be the main reason you would recommend Brick by Brick Wealth and a success with rental properties? If you had to pick one reason to recommend, what would it be?
Oh, well, that's kind of a hard question. There's a lot of things about your program and you that I would recommend. I think one of the reasons would be your knowledge about all these different aspects of not just buying a rental property, but all the other things that go along with it, and your knowledge about different things like researching your market, finding out what kinds of things are up and coming in different areas, different suggestions like you had about subscribing to a local newspaper to find out the local happenings and things like that. And that was really nice to learn after I got into the program, how much you really know about all this stuff and are willing to share it with everybody. And we joke about you being stuck with us forever, and it seems like you're okay with that, which is really nice.
I sure am. I love you guys. It's hard for me to let go, and I feel like you guys are all my good friends now. So
yeah, and it's nice to think, okay, well, Casey wouldn't mind if I give her a ring, even if it's a year down the road or whatever. And it's going to be nice to stay in touch and to see everybody's progress and success. And and we'll have you to thank for that.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate all the wonderful words you've said today. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I would just say that now that we've gone through the program, I'm always super excited if I can help anybody else. And going through the program, and hopefully in a few months, we'll have, at least the one, maybe a couple of properties, and we can show them by our example of what we learned with you that you can succeed in doing this. And, you don't have to worry about all the horror stories you hear, because those are typically people who didn't do enough research and things like that, like you're helping us do.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything.